Good morning, it's Somewhere, and welcome back to the Concellation 2020 Green Room. From transforming your perception to altering your reality, we're joined by writer and producer Flint Dille.
Dille, yeah.
Dille.
No problem. And nobody gets it right.
Yeah. So I have to tell you, as a writer, I consider myself very genre fluid, but Diablo 3, Precious Moments, and Garbage Pail Kids, that's a lot of rating.
Somebody was asking me about that the other day. I said, well, what's your specialty in genre? And I said, it's like, it runs a gamut. Yeah, and you pretty much hit the gamut. I'd forgotten about Precious Moments. Yeah, Buzz did more of that than me. But yeah, from goofy cartoon characters to utter darkness. Yeah, it's because I don't really consider it. I don't really consider it a genre. It's just what the actual project feels like. You know what I mean? You just kind of get the vibe of the project. And like you could do something 3 yards to the right of either of those and I wouldn't get it. Though I will say, yeah, Precious Moments is probably at the furthest possible edge of my abilities. Yeah, I only vaguely remember the project, and I think Buzz had no memory of it. I could be lying about that, but it was just some project he said, I had just no memory of doing it. Oh, Teen Wolf. He didn't remember Teen Wolf.
Yeah. Who's Buzz?
Oh, Buzz Dixon. He's a guy I've worked with a lot. Yeah, he's in the book a lot, in the Games Master a lot. So yes. He was a big G.I. Joe guy. He wrote a lot of Transformers, did everything sort of in that era, and still is working away doing stuff.
So you've done a lot of collaboration. You want to talk a little bit about what that experience is like as opposed to solo project?
Yeah, I mean, I'm about as like extroverted as you can possibly be, and even be a writer in the first place. Yeah, and so. I do stuff, my own solo projects and all that, but I really like working with people, and sort of the more collaborative the medium is, the more I like doing it, because I just, I like working on things that are really big. So that usually means something bigger than something, an individual can do. And because usually the really big things also have a time schedule, like most video games or like Transformers, we'd get an order for 65 episodes. That's a tall thing to do in a year. So it was hard enough just to edit them. So yeah, I just like working with other people because you learn something from all of them. I mean, I'm a pretty collaborative animal.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of collaboration because I love the energy that you get from that, and the things that you don't realize you're thinking about till you're in the middle of pitching them because you're riffing off somebody else. You're like, oh, yes, that is a good idea I just had.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And you have formal collaborations and informal ones. There's people you just share your stuff with and show it to them. Yeah, like Frank Miller and I've had that relationship for, 35 years. I'd pretty much everything. He'll work on stuff, and it's not like we ever have a business arrangement. I mean, he'll make me a character in something, I'll make him a character in something. Bad stuff about him. It's really great. I'm helping a friend of mine now, Dave Marconi. I mean, I'm just it's totally informal, but we wrote Agent 13 together 35 years ago. I mean, it's these things go on for a long time, and it's sort of sometimes John Zurplatton and I have done God knows how many projects together, or doing some stuff together now. I like it.
Very cool. If you could pick your next project, it could be anything, what would you want to play with next?
Oh boy, there are a bunch of things. I got a really cool thing in the pipeline that of course, like all these things, I can't talk about. Yeah. Okay, I guess really some context, because you're catching me on a unique day. So let's talk about that. It's a roundabout way. It's the really around the block way of answering your question. So what you'll see behind me is the wreckage of my storage room. Okay. I have a large storage. You can't really see it in this angle, and I'll knock over the camera or break something. I mean, you wouldn't believe how messy my environment is right now if I try to show you it, but I have a large storage area behind me. And so I moved in here in 1985, literally as I was writing the Transformer movie, to put it into a media context. And so and I have a large storage area. And so, you know, when I would like moved out of the offices there, I just, you know, throw everything in a box, you know, at Ruby Spears or at Sunbow or, you know, later, you know, when with Amblin and, you know, anywhere else. And, you know, I finish a project, I just throw everything in a box and throw the box into storage. And since it seemed like this endless TARDIS of space, yeah, you know, I could just do it, you know, or periodically I just say, oh, there's too much stuff around, clear off my desk or everything irrelevant in, you know, and this goes everything from Christmas cards to you know, scripts, you know, drafts of scripts, throw it into the you know, closet. And then there came that day about 6-8 months ago when we ran out of space. When you know my wife could no longer put in the Christmas ornaments, and my house work is it's a 3-story house, so it's, you know, think of it as a waterfall, and all the flotsam and jetsam ends up right next to the storage area. So all of a sudden that corner, and so we said, okay, we got to do it now. We're going to clean out storage, and it just kind of entering a new phase of life. I mean, you know, we will, when COVID's over, we'll probably be empty nesters, and you know, and but you know, it's so. Well, you know, I went in there and I started doing it. And about every 10 years or so, we clean the storage, right? But it usually goes for like 3 days. It's too overwhelming, give up, cleared up enough space to keep everybody happy for a while, and we're done. And well, this time, 2 things happened. One, we got about a third of the way in and we realized the floor had rotted. So all of a sudden we had, you know, I live in a place that was built in 1927. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's pretty close to 100 years old, right? And you know, it's really cool. It's in Westwood, but you know, things happen, like you have, you know, leaks in walls underground. So the construction guys came out and fixed it, and I'd have a new floor put in. This is a long story to say. I'm also losing about half my storage space. That, you know, when this was built, it was, you know, just kind of jerry rigged. Now we're doing it right. Okay, you know, we're just putting a box in there. You know, you know, storage area in there, but I'm losing a lot of space. So I have to throw away half my stuff. So that meant I really, not throw away, but I had to, you know, one way or another, we have a storage unit that a lot of it goes to too, you know, an industrial one. But I'd get rid of about 60 boxes of stuff. And it is not that hard because most of it was just crap. What that means is you're going through a box you threw in there in, you know, 1994, and you realize, okay, here's this nice note from my mother who's now dead. Do I throw that away or do I keep that? Okay, you know, and like every single object is a decision because it's all something at one time I decided to keep. Especially since my last book, you know, The Games Master. Do you know about that?
Oh no, tell us about the book.
Oh yeah, well, it's called The Games Master. I think I have a copy here somewhere on my desk. Do I? I indeed do. Okay, it is called The Games Master. And it is a memoir of really a period of my life from like 1983 when I got out of film school and was kind of a Hollywood guerrilla. When I got my first job with Joe Ruby at Ruby Spears. I was working on stuff like Mr. T, through meeting Gary Gygax, hence Luke connecting you and I together. And then going to work at Lucasfilm and then Sunbow. And then finally it ends when I got hired to do Tiny Toons by Steven Spielberg. So, you know, and so it's just this kind of writer's journey, but it's like 4 years from you're some, you know, loser. I went to USC film school for grad school. You know, you're some loser out of school to, oh, you got an actual career, and this amazing array of people I met along the way, and adventures I had, and I kept getting fan questions. And one day it was actually when we were I was at a company called Niantic at the time, and we were waiting for our game Pokemon Go to come out. And I'm sitting in an apartment in Paris, and we didn't know that it was going to bomb or it was going to be okay. And you know, we were a startup. We spun out of Google. So, you know, it's just like, you know, thinking of something to do. And I discovered this folder I had where it answered a lot of interviews. Yeah, and, you know, like text, you know, interviews. And I had like 150 pages, and people kept asking about all this stuff. So I decided, oh, I'll put this together and make it a book. Well, there was a step in between. I started, you know, putting, you know, bits and pieces of it on Facebook to see if anybody was interested. And I just did the whole book off Facebook. I put every, chapter in there, rough version of it, and people would ask questions, so I'd clean it up. And I put a, and so I do that. And then finally I said, I think I'll make this a book. So that sounded like a good idea. And I got enough, likes and plus ones to decide to do that. Anybody know an agent? Because I didn't have a book agent. I've written like one other nonfiction book in my life, and I co-wrote that with John Zurplatt. And you'll notice I have all my stuff here because I've been fishing it out of boxes.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate guide to video game writing and design. That's the only other nonfiction I'd ever written in my life. And, so I crowdsourced it, and Harriet Beck, who I'd known for years, said, oh, you got to talk to Stu Miller. Okay, so fine. So I talked to him, and he decided he'd agent me, and another guy knew a publisher. And so I got a publisher, and I had a book, and I finished it right before COVID. As a matter of fact, I kind of rushed the end of it because as things were shutting down, I think my last edits were the Thursday before shutdown. Because I wanted to make sure they got it out, and I knew it was going to be complicated if we're sitting in our house. And my editor, I think, was the last person that came over to my house before lockdown. So anyway, that's a long story. But I don't know. I don't even know how we got onto this particular digression.
I asked you if you could pick any project to play with next. What do you want to play with next?
So I was saying, so in the course of going through 40 years of stuff, what I found are probably a couple dozen unfinished projects, or projects that got to some stage of fruition, or were optioned by somebody but never got made, or I just abandoned or whatever. And so I have 3 boxes of projects here that I'm just going to kind of re-explore from the past. Okay, I've got some projects that I've been working on that are varying states of reality. So I can't answer that question. What I will say is I am sitting amidst a bunch of boxes in which lies the answer. Or maybe it'll be something different.
Well, unlike the debates, it was a very entertaining non-answer for non-answer.
Yeah, there you go. Well, slightly different stakes here,
Yeah. Ever so slightly.
But yeah, so I mean, so you kind of catch me in a moment. I mean, it's an interesting moment to talk about because I'll never be quite here again, where I have a clock ticking, and everything that's going into deep storage in the warehouse storage box that you have to go through CIA clearance to get to. It's really hard to get to. That's all going in a truck on Wednesday. So I have to decide what stays here in my extremely limited space, what goes in there, what goes into the trash, what am I going to give away, and what am I going to sell? And I've done that with everybody. I try to find something to give to somebody every day, because there are all sorts of people I owe favors to, and or just generally need something. So and so I would not think of selling anything, and then I said, there's another thing. I started posting what I found on my Facebook page, because there are a lot of fans there and enthusiasts, and they really got into it, so I'd find something interesting. What it did is alleviated the tedium, because I mean, figure this is about 4 or 5 hours a day for the last 4 weeks. You're just sitting in a pile of garbage. In some cases, it's not like you just look at the object and deal with it. You look at the object, keep it, lose it, then where does it go? And what box does it go into in your life? Is this a throwaway? Is this a keep? Is this a sell? Is this a giveaway? Is this a I don't know. And then there are all sorts of different kinds of keeps, like like these giant pictures of my family, my family I grew up with when I was a kid. Okay, I don't have a wall to put them on, but I feel like a real dog lug if I throw them out. So you keep stuff for weird emotional reasons. It's been this kind of soul exploration journey.
That sounds very cool. So I'm going to change topics a little bit. I know that we recently had 2 guests on, Randy Dawn and Jeff Gomez, and we talked a lot about world building. Yes. And I know it's an area of interest to you. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, to me, it's like, I mean, do you have a specific question, or do you want me to just start rattling off about world building?
Riff, have a good time.
Oh yeah, I mean, world building's a thing I've been doing since the beginning of my career. I mean, probably, you know, I don't know whether it's just you intuitively know this stuff. You know, a lot of stuff back here is Buck Rogers stuff, and so you know, because my grandfather was the originator of Buck Rogers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, so I have all these artifacts around. Okay, and like this picture has been hanging around somewhere ambiently in my life since childhood. It is the solar system rendered in Buck Rogers' world. Now that is world building. You have all the ships, you have all the characters, you have the solar. You know, it's the real solar system, but they've superimposed a mythology on top of it. So when you're looking at that stuff all your life, you intuitively think, oh yeah, it's sort of real and it's sort of not, and it's futuristic, and here's what the creatures look like, here's what the people look like. Oh, they have rocket packs. You know, what's the value system of this world? And then probably the first formal. Now, granted, I probably never heard the word world building until 2005 or something. I mean, I have no idea when I heard it, but was really clear. And I remember with Steven Spielberg, him saying one time, movies are about the world. And what was funny is I just totally, at that moment, I grokked it. I felt like I'd always known it. And then it was Gary, who giving me my first game design lesson ever. We were talking about how to design a dungeon. He was saying you have to think of the ecology of the dungeon.
Yeah.
What eats what? Okay. Who built it and for what reason? If it's protected, what are they protecting it from? What are they trying to protect? Why are they trying to protect it? You know what I mean? Is it a golden idol, or is it a tomb of an undead guy who's going to wake up and ravage the world? What it is, and everything comes out of that. You have rats running around there. Well, what do they eat? Well, they eat the weird mushrooms that are growing out of the floor. Well, okay, so then what eats the rat? You know what I mean? When you literally build it at that level. And so I try to do that for everything. I have various different world building templates and all that. And I think there are different kinds of writers. And this gets back to your original collaboration question. There are different kinds of writers. Some writers see a story. It's the story, it's a story of Charles, okay? And that story can only happen one way. And it's this linear path, and things only come into that from how it affects the story of Charles you're telling, right? Other people just see this whole world, and you just can endlessly generate stories. And the problem is you have to figure out which story you want to tell, because you got too many of them. And that's me, which is really good, given that my career started with things you had to do multiple episodes of, and sequels and spin-offs and expansion packs and new worlds and all that. That's me.
The story from only one vector is one of my particular pet peeves. And I was talking to a new writer recently, and I said to him, just ask yourself this question. Your main character did something. Who did that piss off? That by itself might be a lot of your world building right there. Who's happy about that? Who's upset about that? Who is that a little bit too loud at 11 o'clock at night for?
Yes. Well, because, what you get to, okay, you do, I mean, once again, you have, if you're going to do a really, good piece of work, you have to do it all. You have to develop your characters, and you have to develop your world. And it's how you get there. But the kind of writers where it's character vector are usually writing something out of personal experience. So they're not inventing a world, they're elucidating a world. Yeah. In other words, if you're doing a personal film about, growing up in, Atlantis, okay, you have to explain to the reader what, okay, not that, because nobody really grew up in Atlantis, but I mean, growing up in Chicago, okay, you have to explain to people your world. Like when I was writing this memoir, I wasn't inventing the world. Okay. The world existed. All this stuff really happened. I mean, pretty much everything in there really happened. But what I had to do was the best I could explain the world to people. You know, what was the world that all these shows and games and all that came out of, and why did it happen? Because it was in, you know, what my premise was that there was this just golden age that blew up in the mid 80s when games and comics and animation and films all, and you know, all these new technologies that would seem to be like magic objects dropping into the world every 10 minutes, how all that stuff conspired to create a lot of the stuff in media that really is still powering media now. And you know, we were working with, you know, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, the guys that powered, you know, the movies that everybody's watching now. I mean, that came out of the 60s, exactly one of those times in the 60s. And so, you know, you know, even though I was writing a memoir, what people really wanted to know was about the world. And I was already pinned to the plot. I mean, the plot was my life, you know, and all that. But there's what you leave in and what you leave out, you know, and you know, is anybody going to be interested in this, or do I have to explain this so they can understand the next thing that happened? But you are building a world and a set of causalities, you know, and you know, I didn't even think about it when I was writing it, but I mean, the metaphor of a lot of it was just you're rolling dice. I mean, it's like a game, and the right thing happens on the right day, and your life goes that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, and the, you know, wrong thing happens on that day and your life goes this way. Yeah. But it's all inside a rule set that's your world.
Yeah. So when you were talking about kind of illuminating a world that actually is, I was going to ask you about the fact that a lot of the work you've done is with material that's already partially existent.
Yes.
Things like Transformers, Ghostbusters, things where you were given parts of the world and given the opportunity to build parts of the world. Yes. How does that feel different than when you get to do the whole canvas?
Well, what I would say is they're not as different as you would think, because nothing comes out of nowhere. You know what I mean? You know, when you're creating what you think of as a new IP, well, it's based on something. You know, I mean, something, some way you are combining elements you've seen in the past. You know, it's sort of 1/3 familiar, 1/3 better, and 1/3 new. Because you don't want to create a property where everything's new, because it's just too much new for people, especially when you're doing games. You don't want a new kind of gameplay with a new fiction, with a new, you know, whatever. Something's got to be familiar.
You don't want the step in height to be too big.
Yeah, because you know, I mean, Derek Thompson wrote this book called Hitmakers, and he's right that there's neophilia, which people love new stuff, and there's neophobia, and people hate new stuff. And right now we're in a period of nostalgia, partly because we're catching up with the technological advance. I mean, you can finally make superheroes, movies that, you know, you could never have made before. You could only have done them in animation. So now we're doing all that stuff, but sooner or later people are going to get bored with that, and they're going to say, okay, the technology's old. I know we can do all that. You know, now I want the intellectual content to be new. And so I think there's going to be an explosion of new stuff after COVID. And I want to be part of it, you know. So I want to work on new stuff, I would say, if there's a pattern.
I will tell you, the sentence "after COVID" almost sounds like you have a great imagination.
Oh yeah, I mean, sooner or later, you know. I mean, I'm sitting here. Where are you anyway, physically?
In New York, Manhattan, in Queens, just outside Manhattan.
Okay, so we're probably, you know, on the same level of lockdown. I mean, I saw a list, and you know, California is the most lockdown of, you know, the lockdown, probably the most lockdown state and the most lockdown city and all that. But even now, you know, people are just kind of getting sick of it. You know, I mean, the world is opening up, whether or not, you know, COVID exists and whether or not politicians want them to.
People are trying to negotiate with the virus. I wore my mask for 6 months. I don't have to wear it anymore, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, wait, but let's make, all right, let's make a rule. Okay, the other thing about world building is what you don't have in the world. Let's just, sorry I brought COVID up, because I'm sick of it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, we're all sick of it. But the point is, we are entering, you know, a new era, you know, just simply because we've almost exhausted all the old stuff. You know, I don't know that I need to see another, you know, I mean, the Marvel movies have been maybe the best run in the history of you know, movies. But yeah, I don't know that I need to see another one. Over there, I'm going to be excited about that. You know, I kind of want to see something new. or another reboot of something, and all that. That having been said, we got Buck Rogers back here. But whatever is new in it had better be really new.
Yeah.
And I think we're just heading into that period because everybody's watched every film on Netflix and Amazon Prime that they ever needed to watch. We had 6 months of almost nothing new, and so that's just my theory. Yeah, and I mean, if I'm world building the future,
yeah,
the void in the world, the need in the world is joy and excitement and new. Because at some point, nostalgia can comfort. Frank said this to me once, and so I'm ripping him off. But it can comfort, but it can't thrill.
Yep. Very, very cool. So we're coming up close to the end of our time.
Oh,
is there?
Sorry.
No apologies at all. This has been great.
I'll give you more focused answers. So ask me whatever else you want.
I was going to ask you. You kind of mentioned it a little bit, but who are the people and what are the shows and things like that really inspired you? The things that have really kind of amped up the juice for you and gotten you excited about the kind of things you do.
You mean new ones, or you mean inspirations from
any way you want to answer it?
Well, okay. I have this theory that whatever you think of, this applies to men. Yeah, I don't know about women because I've never been one. But I mean, most guys I know, whatever thrilled them when they were 12, right before adolescence, it's something they take with them for the rest of their life. Okay, so you think you really recapitulate your childhood, and you can see it recapitulate and echo down through generations. And so. Yeah, I saw John Wayne's Alamo when I was 5. Okay, I remembered it almost beat for beat 20 years later when I saw it again, the death of Davy Crockett. But the point is, John Wayne was basically Optimus Prime, right? And then later on, James Bond movies, the whole run of TV shows in the 60s, from Batman and the Green Hornet, the Time Tunnel, and the Avengers and Prisoner and Secret Agent Man, and of course James Bond movies, all of that, and what we could see in 2001. Yeah, and then things I saw in my teenage years, just all the 70s Kubrick movies and Scorsese and Coppola and all that. That's what's sitting there in the warehouse in the storage room.
Mm-hmm.
Then new things penetrate through, and so that's all that stuff inspired me. Weird mix of I was an ancient history major in college, so yeah, I mean, I'll probably never do anything that doesn't have something ancient in it. Because I wasn't an ancient history major by accident. That always
fascinated me. I can't imagine that being an accidental thing.
No, it's not an accidental thing. Yeah, I mean, I try to but I try to be as original as I can. I rarely start and say, "Hey, I want to do James Bond," but he's from Lithuania. Usually I have an idea that I think is really unique and new and original, and then I realize later on, no, it's just something else I was doing. Like Agent 13. I never sat down and said, "Hey, I want to be doing The Shadow," but I really love those kind of pulps. I only had a vague idea what they were. And so I started reading them and all that, and I realized, I'm walking down the same road that the serials walk down and all that, but hopefully I'm doing a new version of it. That's probably the most derivative kind of thing I've done. And even when you reboot things, well, I mean, I haven't done nearly as many reboots as I have moving something from one medium to another. In other words, translating, film into a video game is trickier than you would think, because, the film would be about, an hour of gameplay.
Yeah. And a billion years ago, I interviewed the people at West End Games when they were doing the Star Wars role-playing game. And one of the mandates they came up with was the movies should work as episodes in the game. If the movies don't work within the role-play system, then we did the role-play system wrong.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, depending on the, and I've been doing a lot of different role playing during this period of isolation, just wildly different things people are doing now, and it totally depends on the velocity. Yeah, we've been working on Jay Parker and I've been working on a thing where we're trying to follow an animation beat chart. And so the thing really keeps moving along. I mean, I'm not a big fan of long battles where you're rolling dice forever. You know, I'm trying to do something where you get an animated episode, you know, that much content in an hour and a half of gameplay. And that's in itself almost impossible. But
unless you match against Dragon Ball Z, and then the combat can take 12 episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. So, I mean, you're making these trade-offs, you know, and the trade-off is the more ornate you want the fighting, the slower the story progression is. You know, the faster the story progression, the more you have to streamline the fighting. And I tend to be, I want the story progression. And really what I'm working on now is trying to give every character, you know, this role playing. Yeah, because since the beginning, it's always been about teams. You know, you have your team, your raid team. And what I want is everybody on the team has a slightly different agenda, and you don't know what the other people's agendas are. And you can dial that all the way up and down from one team member of the team supposed to kill another member of the team after you complete the mission to now, you know, one of them wants the gems and another one wants the, you know, a certain number of kills of these evil, you know, creatures in there. But the point is, then it becomes a negotiation and a dynamic.
Yep.
You know, and agendas can be overt and everybody knows I'm along for this reason. You know, like Star Wars, if you really think about, you know, everybody was on Millennium Falcon for a different reason. Okay, some were pretty obvious, you know, some were hidden. I mean, we had no idea really what Obi-Wan's agenda was.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun putting characters together where all of their goals are completely compatible, but there's a communications failure, so they don't think they've got the option of simply saying, I'll do this, you do this, you do this, and watching the chaos that ensues from the personal fall apart.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so that's, you know, so there are a lot of, you know, so when you ask what the next project is, it's probably going to be whatever I stumble on that catches fire. You know, or what, you know, what comes up just in the course of my career. But I mean, you know, as far as the next self or, you know, originated project, you know, I have a bunch of things, you kind of put them out there and you craft them and you see what the rest of the world thinks. I mean, I may have my opinion of what people want to see, but at the end of the day, I'm a pretty commercial artist. You know, I want to do, you know, what somebody else is going to enjoy. I'm not really doing this for myself.
Yeah, we create these things to be viewed or read or listened to.
Exactly.
We want the audience to be part of the participation.
Exactly.
Flint, this was phenomenal. I really appreciate you giving us the time.
Happy to do it. Thanks to you to Luke Gygax for setting this up.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to get you and Luke and your other friend Robert together maybe.
Yeah, great.
And do another one early next year. We'll get you guys together and put you all in the same room.
Well, great. I'm incredibly easy to find. Hopefully this room will be different by then.
Very good. I will speak to you soon, and thank you very much, sir.
Okay, great. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Danny!
Which brings us back to the end of the show before the show that will never start.